Hey everyone, what's up? It's DJ here at Top Deck Cards and Games, and we're going to do another new format deck profile for you guys for the April 2020 ban list. Today we're going to talk about a deck that just got its boss monster back. You can see it right on the screen here. We're talking about Zoodiac. Zoodiac was an insanely powerful deck for such a long time. A lot of people are probably still tired of it. That formats, I should say, didn't end, and it seemed like no matter what they hit from the deck, it didn't matter. It was just still insanely good. Um, we're not quite at that point anymore. The deck has gotten a lot worse. They finally hit enough cards from it over the last couple iterations, and years later, they finally decided it's safe to give us back Zoodiac Trident. Dryden was the best card in the deck by a fairly wide margin. I guess that's debatable because with more than one copy, Rad is also insane. But Dryden is the card that lets you play through boards, it lets you protect your board, it just does everything for you. So getting Dryden back is a huge boon for the deck. We're going to be able to use that Dryden now to break our opponent's board, or if we're forced to go first, we're going to be able to use it to protect our board. Um, in general, we're going to choose to go blind second with this deck. There are a couple reasons for that, but the biggest one is that we're going to actually be making the Infinitrack Megaclops in the deck. Megaclops gives us an additional way to break through our opponent's boards. It lets us get multiple Trident pops off when we're going second, and it's just a really difficult monster to deal with. It's gigantic, so it pushes damage, it pushes through their board. Yeah, it just does it all. This card is great. It's very easy to make. We're playing a couple of different enablers for it in the deck, but getting that extra Trident ability off is just going to make it much easier to clear your opponent's board. And the nice thing about this deck is that if we're not able to go second and make our Megaclops, we're still able to do a lot, even if we're forced to go first, just by summoning Trident and having some protection along with it. One issue with the list for the deck, though, is that they did limit Zoodiac Barrage. With Barrage at 3, it was much easier to make the Megaclops play, but we're rewarded now by having Trident instead. So we lose a bit of power in the Barrage, and it makes it a lot harder to summon Megaclops. So we got a little bit creative in its stead. Because we're not given 3 copies of Barrage, though, we did need to play some extra consistency cards and make some things work. One of the neat cards that we're playing in the deck is actually XYZ Shift. XYZ Shift is going to act sort of as Barrage, not in the sense that it's a consistency card. It doesn't help us open our Rat or a Thoroughblade, or make sure we're able to summon our Zoodiac monsters turn 1. But we've got a lot of ways to do that already, so I don't think it's the biggest deal in the world that we're losing some of those, and that we instead get to play a card like XYZ Shift. What Shift does is let us summon Megaclops. I mean, that's basically what it's all about. If you can't read the text there on your screen, it lets us tribute an XYZ monster. Then we have to summon a different XYZ monster with the same type, attribute, and rank from our extra deck, but it has to have a different name. So what this is going to let us do is summon Zoodiac monsters, tribute one of them in order to summon a copy of Chakanine, and then bring back another one so we can resolve maybe multiple Chakanine effects in the turn to set up our 3 XYZ board to summon the Megaclops. There could be other applications for the card. I'm not playing anything that really synergizes with this outside of the Zoodiac cards. I don't have anything else that we can bring out other than Zoodiac monsters, but it's definitely a consideration we could put in the future. There's a little bit of flexibility with the extra deck, not a ton, but we could look into some interesting options for those slots. So let's just get into the list. Right here, I've got our deck on the screen. The first thing you'll notice is we're playing a ton of hand traps. I have them all grouped together here. That's 13 hand traps. 3 Ash Blossom, 3 Effect Veiler, 3 Phantasme, 3 Ghost Ogre, and a copy of DD Crow. There are obviously other hand trap options that we could play. I think 13 is a good number, or if you don't look at Phantasme really as a hand trap, 10 plus the 3 Phantasmes to help dig for them. This is going to give us a pretty good odds of finding one when we're going second, so that we can stop our opponent's plays, and still solid odds of finding 2, or at least Phantasme into 1 if needed, so that we can keep our opponent from setting up too much of a board to the point that we can't overcome it. Next up, we're maxing on the good Zoodiac monsters. We've got 3 Ram Rams, a copy of Rat Pierre, 3 copies of Thoroughblade, and 3 Whiptail. We're playing all the zoos that we can because we just need to find one and get our play going turn one. We definitely want to be able to pitch to Thoroughblade when possible because our best plays are going to involve us having a zoo monster in our graveyard as well, preferably that Ram just so we can get the best pieces of our combos into play. But you don't need zoo monsters to the point that we're ready to play Bunny Blast at this point. Depending on what happens with the formats, there's obviously a chance that if there's some sort of spell interaction that we want to play, we could play Bunny Blast in order to get that effect for when it's overlaid under... Underlaid? What's the word for that? I don't know. When it's under one of our attached, our Zoodiac monsters as protection. But at this point, I think the 10 good Zoodiac monsters, 3 Whiptail just as our removal, Thoroughblade for dig, Rats and Sandstill, and Ram for its combo potential, is the way to go. Next up in our spells, first off, we've got 3 Called by the Grave. This is a card that has moved in and out of the list several times. There's a lot of options you can use in this slot, and I do consider it to be the most flexible spot in the deck list. But since we're playing with the mindset that we want to make that Megaclops when we're going second, if possible, I felt that we wanted to play 3 copies of it so that we can make sure our plays go through. That being said, it's easy to make this into more hand traps, maybe an extra consistency card or a card to help our grind game, or even something like a Lightning Storm if spell and trap heavy decks are popular in the format. Next up for consistency, we've got 3 Tankies and 3 Pot of Desires. There's very, very little risk to playing Pot in this deck. The only thing you ever really can lose, you can see there's not a lot of 1s and 2s or anything in here. These cards are all basically 3 ofs. You know, the 1 of Crow is just the 13th hand trap. It could be anything, so we're not scared to lose that. Rat is unfortunate to lose, but it's not the end of the world. If we can find other zoo plays, it doesn't really matter. Tanky obviously is extra copies of all of our Zoodiac cards as well as a pump spell, so hard to complain about having that as a 3 of also. This is a deck that did get a little bit of a boost also from Pot of Avarice coming off the list. I'm playing 2 in this list, but I've found in grindy matchups, even more so than playing spell and trap removal, that you're able to win the game just by having more Pot of Avarices. And even against some of the combo decks, you're really able to stop them from having time to rebuild if you're able to pot and recycle your Dryden so that you can keep reusing it. I've found 2 copies to be enough when we're playing against the really combo-heavy decks, but there are definitely matchups where we would want more, and that's always an option. 3 XYZ Shift, we've talked about this a little bit earlier in the video, but this card is just going to let us make those Megaclops plays. It's just really powerful, gives us a much higher ceiling, but definitely not like a required card. We've also got Monster Reborn to go with that as an extra extender to do something similar with, as well as Zoodiac Barrage. We are only allowed 1 of this. This kind of fits into the role of a combo/extender card like these 4, as well as the consistency card angle of Tanky and Pot of Desire. So obviously if we could play more barrages we would. We're allowed to play 1, so we're going to play it. And Upstart Goblin. I'm not always sold on Upstart in my blind second decks, especially when there's not any specific card we're looking for so much. But I felt that we really want to find one of these 5 when we're going second, so I chose to play the Upstart instead of something like a 14th hand trap. Or the 3rd Avarice or anything like that. I just felt like we're going to get the most mileage when we're going second against some of the combo-based decks from finding these cards on our first turn. So I decided the 3 Phantasmes were more important than other hand traps since they let us dig towards action, as well as the Upstart Goblin. Obviously, those spots are flexible. I think we need to keep hand traps in those slots for the Phantasmes, but we could play something else. Looking at the sideboard down here, I'm using this as a maybe board again. We've got Nibiru's or DD Crow that we could use in that slot. We also could play Lightning Storms in those slots. Not exactly a hand trap, but a going second card that's really useful to clear out our opponent's board, especially against spell and trap heavy decks. Same goes for Evenly Matched, another card that we could use sort of as a hand trap or as a protection card so that we don't get run over by our opponent's early boards. We don't care as much about our battle phase since we're able to use Dryden to pop one way or another. We could also take a going first approach and play real trap cards. I've got Solemns in here, which are probably the best traps you could play. Compulse is another option. Not a ton else that I'd really consider at this point, but those are all really good trap cards. We could choose to go first and set some traps instead. Finally, we've got a copy of Zoodiac Combo and a 3rd Pot of Avarice sitting over here. If we want to be really grindy, we can play these. This might go in conjunction with playing the trap cards. just because they let us play an even better long game. Decks aren't really going to out-resource us if we're playing all of these. Too many copies of them does get a little bricky. I think before I'd play the third pot, I would actually play the first copy of Combo, since it's a combo, I guess, with Thoroughblade, or we can dump it with Rad if we wanted to, rather than jamming our hand full with 3 pots. Onto the extra deck, we play 1 generic rank 4. I've got an Exciton Knight. We are a go second deck. If the option presents itself, we can really blow a board out with Exciton. For the Zoodiac monsters, I've got 1 Borbo, 1 Dryden, and 1 Hammer Kong, as well as 3 copies of Chakanine and 3 copies of Tiger Mortar. These are just really starters. We need them so we can fill our grave and get things in there. We're going to use Chakanine and Tiger Mortar as our main combo cards that are letting us move things around and get XYZs back on the battlefield, as well as Dryden just to pop our bonus cards. We've got 2 copies of Megaclops in order to take advantage of that XYZ shift play and clear our opponent's board, as well as just some generic ones in Nightmare Phoenix, Nightmare Unicorn, and Gravity Controller to help us clear our opponent's board off. I think you can definitely get away with 1 Megaclops. We could get as flexible as we want in that Exciton slot. And Gravity Controller, while not necessary, I do think it's very good, but obviously a slot that we could mess with as well. So there's definitely some options for the deck. I haven't thought a lot about extra deck slots. I probably would sideboard an Abyss Dweller if I'm forced to go first against a deck like Dinosaurs or, the Rock BA deck or something like that. So there's definitely incentive to do that, or even just to fit it into the extra deck for the games where we're first to go first if we don't want to burn a sideboard slot. But that's the deck. I'm really enjoying playing this one as well. I don't think this is as competitive as some of the other decks I'm messing with, but I do think it's a cool deck. You're able to go second, which I really value blind second decks, especially in new formats, because I don't want to feel like I got screwed over by the die roll ever. I don't want to be committed to the die roll, and your opponent's going to choose to go first the vast majority of the time. So I think you are putting yourself at an advantage by playing a second deck. Let me know what you guys think down below. I know there are some other variants of this deck. I've seen people play cards like the Time Thieves in here as well, so that's always an option and something that we could consider. I think we want to play a healthy number of hand traps, though. I don't think we want to go first. And I think we've covered a lot of different options here. So let me know what you guys think about the Zoodiac down below, whether you think this is a deck that can really compete or not, or if there's cards you guys think I should be playing that I'm not. I'm always happy to talk about it. Thanks a ton for watching. We'll have more stuff coming soon. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button.